Vale. Li dones molts records, Ara no la molesto gaire perquè deu estar... Està estudiant, no?
Sí, crec que sí.
Sí. Bona tarda, buenas tardes, good afternoon. You're all very welcome to the University of Barcelona School of Medicine and Health Science. My name is Antoni Trilla. I am actually the Dean of the school, and it's a pleasure to have my colleague and Dean of the Biology School, Rosina Gironès. We will be very brief, so just thank you for coming to Barcelona, for having the meeting of Eurolife Autumn, it's a difficult word for us to pronounce, Autumn Symposium here in Barcelona. And hopefully, I expect that you use very well the time this afternoon and make some progress in the idea of this also long title of Transdisciplinary Approach to Health and Well-Being. Just for your information, in the medical school, we have also working in a network, in a European network that is called ENCHI, European Network for Climate Health Education, that is focused on the education of future medical doctors and nurses on climate health and the implication of the health services in the climate changes in the world. So thank you for being here, and I left the word to Rosina.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm here, I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Biology, as Tony said, but I'm also the coordinator of the Hub on Global Sustainability of the University of Barcelona. And I thank you, the organizers of this meeting, to invite us to stay here and to share with you the work we have done developing the Global Sustainability Hub as a tool to be more efficient, quicker, and to have more impact in all the topics related to sustainability that, as you can imagine, are all related to health and well-being, in fact, no? Everything is interacting. So, thank you. And we may start the session, and I can briefly introduce the hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Supposed to be here? Okay. So, I want to share with you our experience building a structure that has been new for us. And it's a structure that came from the sense that we need to start working in a different way because we had such a huge crisis and so many different topics related to sustainability that need to be afford really quickly and in a very efficient way. So we thought that we couldn't continue working as we were doing before. And we tried to build a cross-cutting research alliance. In fact, yes. Yeah. So trying to contribute as much as we can to solve all these problems, to analyze them and to solve them. So we start by having meetings, in virtual meetings, trying to put together people from different specialties and faculties. That was easy after the COVID-19 to have virtual meetings. And trying to be sure that every challenge was taken by people from different disciplines altogether, bringing some coordinators for every challenge. And we started to meet each other because the scale of a university as the University of Barcelona, it's a nice scale because it offers two opportunities. Of course, the virtual interactions, but also physical, getting to know each other and much close collaborations. So after sharing all this with the researchers at the university, we come up with a hub for global sustainability involving about 300 researchers from 15 different faculties and 17 people belonging to different institutes or centers or research groups. And yes, so, yeah. So the first thing we try to do is to get to know better each other. Of course, we didn't finish with this job. We still have planned different meetings to make it nice. We really enjoy this part because we had a part where we get to discuss in a roundtable same topics, but from completely different point of views, and trying to match the language. That's the first thing we need to do. So that's really challenging, and it was really exciting, and we continue working on that, and to work in these multidisciplinary teams, and then, of course, to develop tools and technologies, and to try to solve and provide solutions. And the objective of providing these solutions is to transfer them to the industry, to do the green transition, and also there is a very important part, and we value very much the members of our hub that are specialists on the social, psychology, cultural action, because these parts are as important as the technical or more biological or chemical part. So, yes. So another of the goals, or another of the objectives has been to bring together our specialists with the users, the owners, the farmers, the regulators, and to do that in an open table with public. And it has been really interesting, so far, the several meetings we had in this sense. We call that Agora. And we are planning very soon a new one, and it's a really nice experience because there are not so many locations, not so many possibilities of bringing all the people together, and really try to make some outcomes after these meetings. Okay, of course, we didn't solve any of the big problems yet, but we will continue doing that, working on that. So, yes, this is an image of what I said, bringing together in the same round table people from completely different faculties, but interested in the same topic. We learn a lot from each other. So we did that to define initially research priorities for the next years, then also discussing about communication. It's a really difficult topic nowadays, you know really well how difficult it is to communicate science, and to fight between giving the right information in a short format, in an easy way, and also not to be giving only bad news. So we need to mix everything in a package with a route to walk. Okay, then we also discuss on sustainability in teaching, and because this is a university, and also lifestyles and university life, no? So, so far, we have in the hub of global sustainability, we have a distribution of the experts in 9 thematic research nodes. The nodes are very global. This is very flexible, and it's evolving. So we are meeting, and we are ready to change anything at any time, yes. But let me just go through a little bit the 9 nodes, and that will be the end of my introduction here. We can come to discuss the special projects that are much more specific and maybe more interest for you, The nodes, the first one is climate change. That includes, of course, climate dynamics and modeling, but also mitigation technologies and policies, the socioeconomic effects and adaptation strategies. So we try to be very global and to mix physics with lawyers, with people expert in right, in economy, in communication, everything, as I said, no? So also the second one will be mitigation of the anthropogenic impact that works on remediation and also modeling dispersion, restoration of aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. It's quite, you could see here how wide are the topics, biodiversity conservation, with big points like carbon sequestration and ecosystem conservation, applied conservation and management strategies, etc., biodiversity monitoring. Yes. Energy and ecological transition, that's a huge point, as you know already really well. So it's including materials and reactors for green hydrogen production and CO2 conversion, nanomaterials, and also the aspects of governance and ecological macroeconomics. So if we continue, it takes me a while to move this. Oh yes, here. Yes, so management of resources, including also important aspects of environmental justice and equity and conservation. And healthy life and prevention of new pandemics. In fact, as I said, all the topics are related to health and well-being too. In the healthy life and prevention of new pandemics, we have teams working on virology, as myself, and epidemiology, and we have, of course, nutrition, and also all the aspects, cultural and society health interactions. Food systems are really important, as you already know, too, and to build a sustainable production and consumption. So we have very different specialists related to this node. In urban and territorial transformation, I'm finishing, which include the landscape protection and management, and also territorial planning, environmental psychology, and social dynamics. Luckily, we have great teams on environmental psychology. Can look at somebody here. And social dynamics. So it has been really an adventure for science more specific in the lab, or the physics or chemists to interact with the psychologists and sociologists. And that's the last one, education, communication, and culture for sustainability. And this is a huge one too. And because we are in the university, there is a lot to work here. Also trying to engage citizens around sustainability and to work on the right message and the right education tools. And that's all. You can visit our website and we'll get more information on the people. And it's just a tool that has been working so far, and we will make it work further and adapt and try to be useful. So thank you very much. And if you allow me, I can introduce now the projects. Thank you. So the first project is called RISCOM, Perception of Risk, Misinformation and Community Resilience, Promoting Safety in Climate Emergencies Due to Flooding. Angela Castrecini, she is here, Department of Social Psychology and Quantitative Psychology, Faculty of Psychology of the University of Barcelona. Please. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us to be here. It's really nice to share one of our projects. So, this is a research project that we have developed during this year, and is integrated for different people from different disciplines, and also all of us are vinculated with the global sustainability of the University of Barcelona, and also we have the support of 2 municipalities in Catalonia, and also a cooperative entity working with architecture. So, our project is not about health, really, but is indirect link with this topic in the sense that, as you know, we have some problems related with climate change, and flooding risk is something that is getting every year more important in our countries and also in the Mediterranean coast. So some of the things that we have observed from the media and from the evidence is that this situation, this flooding situation, has a very important impact on physical health, like injuries, contamination, infrastructure collapse, for example, but also in the psychological, have a nice psychological impacts, generating some distress, uncertainty, loss of control, and also we have to think about how people can manage all of this situation, how can be prepared, and how can be react to this situation. So flooding is both an environmental and public health challenge. Looking through literature, there are some studies that they underline that there is a quite clear relationship between flooding situation and some mental health problems. For example, depression, anxiety, mood disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep disruption. Also, suicide is one of the issues that has been studied. And for example, in your right part of the slide, you can see that from a UK study, they found that almost 30% of people after a year of having suffered a flooding situation, they develop a post-traumatic stress disorder. And what is very, very interesting of this data is that this data is comparable to those observed among displaced population in conflict zones. So it's not a small situation, it's really an important, a big situation to focus in. So I will share some of the main objectives of our project and some of the results. The project had 3 main objectives. The first one was to analyze perception of flood risk on people of these 2 municipalities, I will show later, and also to study the role of misinformation and fake news, because maybe as you know, last year we had a flooding episode in Valencia, and in other countries there are also some experience, and there was a very important problem with the kind of information that was moving through the social media. And the third one has to do with the identify social factors that strengthen community resilience in order that people could, to restart and to continue their life. The final aim is to develop or design some educational and communication resources for risk management. So this is more or less the different disciplines that we have in our team. As you can see, we have people from social science, classical science like physics, biology, others like geography, education, data science. And we think that trying to afford to approach these kind of problems, we need really a very interdisciplinary teams. So I just show this map. Here you can see in the center Barcelona, close to the sea, and we have the other 2 cities involved in the study. One is at the north, and it has been characterized by sudden flash floods, and on the other side, at the south, we have Castelldefels, which is characterized by slower and wider floods. This is very interesting because, for example, I am a psychologist, and some of our team from geology say, okay, we have to choose very well which kind of municipality we want to study, and they say, okay, this is important because the pattern of flooding is very different, and maybe people need different information in each case. This is some of the maps that the geologists part of the team have been developing, and as you can see, they are very different. The distance and the distance and the geomorphological structure of the territories is very different, and the distance from the mountain to the coast also, and that is a condition that make diverse the territory. Here you can see the blue zones are the zones that tends to be flooding, and also you can see the dense urban development that has been in the coast. Is more or less in most of the Mediterranean coast. We have a lot of urban stress. And here, as you can see, there are some infrastructure like a rail train and roads that make like a barriers, contention, and then that make that water don't go to the sea, so make a very flooding situation. In the other city, in Premià de Mar, the situation is very different, and as you can see here, the purple color is, most of them is related with different kind of streams and rivers, so the flooding is very different. It's close to this kind of geomorphological situation. Okay, we designed our research trying to take a mixed methods approach, collecting some quantitative and qualitative data. For the quantitative data, we developed a survey with 3 different concepts that of our title: risk perception, community resilience, and fake news discernment. And we also we developed some focus group in both communities and take a look a little bit about the media related with in order to understand what kind of discourse were circulating by the media and in the mind of people. So from the survey, what we found is that there is a clear concern about flood risk, especially in connection with climate change. Related with community resilience, instead, we observe a moderate confidence because, as you can see here, the media, all of the questions or the items were from 1 to 5 points, and the 5 points is the higher punctuation, and the 1 point is the lower. And here you can see the media of all of the items of the different surveys, the different part of the survey. And from the fake news exploration, what we found is that skepticism toward sensationalism and social media is present, and there is a greater trust in authorities. We will see later that this is maybe related with the level of education and also the age of the people that participate in the study. So with all of this data, we trying to look if there were differences between the socio-demographic variables, and we have some statistical differences. Some of them, or most of them, are related with the concept of community resilience. And one we find is that, for example, gender it seems to be different, the way that men and women react or behave related with this concept of community resilience. It seems that females or women are more concerned about community ties and are most clear to ask for help. The other variable is the type of housing. This is very interesting. There were 2 kinds of answers, if it were just houses or blocks of apartments, and it seems that people that live in blocks feel more secure or more supported by the others that live closer to them in comparative with the others that live in just in isolated houses. And the other thing has to do with the education. It seems that people with higher level of education have more trust in the institutions. Related with the focus group, we asked people in the groups to explain us about the different, past episodes about floods and what they see, what they think and feel related with that. What about their emotions and thoughts? And we also ask for mapping, with different stickers to map safe and unsafe places in order to compare with that original maps of flooding places. And also we ask for you know, way of thinking. Okay, I will go to the results that it could be most interesting. And this is just some of the results, it's not all. And we found some bias about how people think about the situation. And we found, for example, optimist bias, thinking about that bad things happen to other people in other places. For example, one said that might happen in other neighborhoods, but not mine. Also, we found normality bias, which means believing that the future will be the same as the past. And an example of one of the participants, it's always raining like this here, nothing ever happened. And also we find some affective denial, rejecting information that causes anxiety or fear, that is related with the first slides that I showed you about the impact on the mental health, and also the externalization of responsibility, saying that, for example, the problem is the problem for councils and city council, and it's not my problem. Okay, for the media analysis, just a few examples also. We analyze some news, taking the approach of framing, and there is a classification of different framings, and we found that most of the news more or less match this kind of frame. Attribution and conflict, this is a problem, this is something whose responsibility is from that institution, they have to do something, etc. Also, we found some news framed from human interest, making evidence of the injuries on people, harmful, and also places, and some solutions from the technocratic point of view or institutional. So, one of the outputs, some of the outputs that we are now developing is this that you can see here. We are designing a booklet with practical flood preparedness, where people can make, what they need to be prepared, and there is a standard, but also as a family, how can we organize? For example, if everybody is in their different places, how can we decide where to move, how we contact, etc. Also, we are designing an infographics correcting misconceptions related with this bias, and some recommendations for campaign design for the authorities of these two municipalities. The next steps that we are now working on that is that trying to put together all of the information to trying to go further than, multidisciplinarity, go into the interdisciplinarity results, and also just trying to present the results to the city councils and the citizens, and we believe that interdisciplinarity is essential and citizens must be part of the solution. And that's all for my side, and thank you very much. Okay.
So we have a roundtable later on, and maybe questions could be all concentrated later. So we move to the next speaker, which is my pleasure to introduce Neus Martinez Abadias. The project has the name of Phenomia, really nice name. Development of artificial intelligence-driven diagnostic and prognostic tools for rare diseases through BIP phenotyping and advanced biomarkers. Thank you.
Thank you. So, say good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for the organizers for giving us the opportunity to present our research here. So, So, in the world, there are 300 million people diagnosed with rare diseases, and this is because there are more than 7,000 disorders called as rare, and they are called rare because they affect less than 1 in every 2,000 people. And most of these people, they face long diagnostic odysseys because it can take up to 9 years to get a diagnosis. And the problem doesn't end there, because then they are clueless about the prognosis, and for more than 40% of these disorders, there is no treatment. So there is really a lot of people that is facing this devastating situation, and that affects 8% of all human population. So I have no doubts whatsoever that if we knew that a disease was affecting the whole European population, this would be considered a global health priority. But unfortunately, this is not the case in rare diseases. And historically, rare diseases have been neglected, they have been invisibilized, and very little research has been done because, well, it's easy to think that pharmaceutical companies were not very interested in investing in these diseases that affected so many people, so few people, each one of them. And then, since very recently, the governments have not really been investing in fostering research in rare diseases. And on top of that, we are also finding that the research that has been performed is very biased, because most of it has been developed in European or North American countries, assuming that what would be found in these populations could be extrapolated to the rest of the world. But this has disregarded the rest of the people, and also neglecting that one of the major factors of human populations is that there is a huge range of genetic and phenotypic variation. So in order to fill in this gap, our research has been concentrated in Latin America, because we know from anthropological and genetic studies that from a population standpoint of view, this was the last continent to be populated from populations coming from Asia, and during their history there has been a lot of recent admixture, and this makes that in Latin America we observe all the human variation that can be expressed in human populations, because in Latin American individuals, we can find all possible combinations between Native American, Asian, European, and African ancestry. And we think that this is a strategic approach to try to encompass the whole variation of the human populations to further understand rare diseases. So beyond genetic ancestry, we are interested in phases, because previous research has shown that up to 40% of rare disorders, they present characteristical facial phenotypes. And this makes it very promising that facial biomarkers have potential to become non-invasive and low-cost biomarkers for rare diseases. So putting all these evidence together, there are several companies that they have been exploiting already this potential. And Face2Gene, for example, they have developed these smartphone applications that clinicians all over the world are using today. And with their smartphone, they make pictures of their patients, of the face, and they have trained some machine learning methods that extract some facial features from these images, and the output is a list of the most probable diagnosis of these patients. And this would really make a difference in shortening that long diagnostic odyssey that I was talking about before. But the fact is that when we have been testing these algorithms in several rare diseases and in Latin American populations, we find that FES2 gene has low accuracy in these diverse populations because it has not been trained with people from this country. That's the simple. So putting everything together, we put forward this project proposal, the next, in which we are aiming to develop biomarkers enhanced for developing diagnostic and prognostic tools for rare disorders. And we would love to apply these tools to all the rare disorders, but to make sense in the project, we have to choose one syndrome, and we chose Turner syndrome. So Turner syndrome is caused by a partial or a complete loss of one of the two X chromosomes. This alters many body systems, including growth and development, but also includes facial and physical features that we are really interested in. And then we chose this syndrome because within rare diseases, it is one of the most prevalent, and it presents with high genetic and phenotypic heterogeneity. Moreover, the average age at diagnosis is 15 years old, and maybe the reason why this is so much more delayed in comparison to other rare disorders maybe is because it only affects women, but that's another problem. So in BNext, what we want to do is to make a deep characterization of the phenotype and the genotype of patients that have been diagnosed with this syndrome in Spain, in Spanish, and Latin American populations. And it's not only to understand how variation and genetic variation affects in this syndrome, but also to gather all this data in order to develop tools that can improve the diagnosis and the prognosis of this disorder. And to make this happen, we have been establishing this fruitful collaboration with engineers from La Salle. And we think that this is a clear multi- and interdisciplinary research trying to improve our research in rare disorders. So again, like Rosina was saying, the communication, sometimes we speak different languages and we have to get together and to discuss a lot in order to find these common points, but finally it's working well. And here I'll show you the first stages of the project. We have set up collaborations as well with biologists, physicians, clinical geneticists, and psychologists, physiotherapists in an international network, including people from Spain, Colombia, Brazil, and Argentina. And we are collecting all kinds of data, facial, body, voice, clinical data, along with saliva and buccal swabs for extracting DNA. And while the bio team is analyzing all these different biomarkers and trying to assess whether there are distinctive patterns associated to Turner syndrome, the engineering team is developing tools that help us to automatize all this process. So what we would be doing manually and that would take months or years for us to complete, they have been able to develop softwares that do the same work even better with higher precision in just a matter of minutes. And then the idea is that they are developing tools that using the smartphone we can get 3D facial scans also from the body, obtain voice biomarkers, and in the next phase of the project, the idea is to combine all this data together with clinical and neurodevelopmental biomarkers and train with this data supervised and unsupervised machine learning models in order to improve the diagnosis and the prognosis of the syndrome. So I'll show you a little bit of what the work that we are doing with the faces. So when we do to the different sites to do data collection, we bring this stereophotogrammetric system that is composed of 10 cameras. They are shot synchronously, and we have the face of the person from different angles, and then we can build these beautiful 3D facial models from where we capture facial shape. So to do that, our engineer, Alvaro, has been training a machine learning model based on a multi-view convolutional neural network that has achieved to place with high precision the 3D coordinates of a set of 21 points, landmarks that are located in the face. And from those facial biomarkers, we can later, the biologists, try to perform a statistical analysis to see whether there are differences or not within controls and patients with Turner syndrome. So this is what we have been doing with the data that we have collected so far in Spain and in Brazil with our team of collaborators here in Spain and in Brazil. And here are the first results. Susana started analyzing the data from the Spanish cohort, and here each point represents the face of a woman, and in blue you have the controls, in purple you have the Turners, and even if there is an overlap in facial variation, we can detect that there are statistical significant facial differences between them, and these are the ones that can be used for diagnosing. And if we look into in the 3D facial meshes, we can detect that these facial differences are located all over the face, but basically what it's causing is a mid-facial hypoplasia that it's clear from these 3D meshes, but maybe in methods that are only using 2D data, it's not so evident. So that's why we think that really making the jump into working with 3D models can really improve this line of research. Then we have Mireia, that she has started checking what happens with the Brazilian cohort, and she's finding very similar results, also with significant different facial differences between controls and patients. And then we said, well, that's fine, let's pull everything together, all the data together, because then it's really that we will be able to have larger samples, and for a rare disease, this is very important because you have very few cases scattered all over the world. So when we did that, oh surprise, what we found is that the diagnosis is no longer explaining the maximum variation between individuals, but it's the origin, the country of origin of individuals. So country is explaining 6 times more facial variation than the diagnosis itself. This really means that we need to adjust the models for populations, because if not, if we develop a method that works perfectly with the Spanish sample, it will not work with the Brazilian one. And when we went to try to understand more why this is happening, Ona, she analyzed the genetic ancestry of the individuals, and you can see here the yellow points are represent Brazilian individuals, that they are very variable in their ancestry, not so much the Europeans, that we are like very homogeneous, and almost all of us, we have this European ancestry. But what we found is that facial shape is modulated significantly by this genetic ancestry. So this is, again, more evidence confirming our hypothesis that we need to standardize by country. Then, this is exactly what Álvaro also is finding when he's doing his first steps into developing these machine learning algorithms. So when using either a more simple or a more complex representation of facial shape, when he uses the same population in the training and the validation data sets, you can see here that the accuracy is pretty high. We almost get more than 90% of correctly diagnosed cases. Instead, when we swap the population and we use one or the other to train or validate, you see that the accuracy is dropping to 70%. So really, if we want this to work, it has to be optimized, because if not, it will be an algorithm that will not work for everyone. So if we go and then test how are the current diagnostic algorithms working, we see that face-to-gene doesn't work very well with Turner syndrome, especially in Spain. It only detected 20% of the cases. With the Brazilian samples it works better, but it doesn't even reach 50%. So there are several problems here. We guess that working with 2D pictures is not providing the best information, but also not taking into account all this variability and differences that Turner syndrome presents makes that this is not working. And then when we checked with which syndromes face-to-gene was confounding Turner syndrome, we found quite a large list of syndromes, and this has been the preliminary results that we have used to put together another project, Phenomia, in this case, in which we incorporated a very important new partner, Dr. Tony Martinez from San Juan de Déu, and now we are 3 partners in this interdisciplinary research, and Phenomia will extend the tools from BNX from only Turner to what we call Turner-like syndromes, combining deep facial phenotyping with multi-marker profile, and with this, we expect to keep doing more steps towards improving precision medicine. And what we are putting a lot of efforts is in developing this low-cost tool for acquiring facial 3D models, because you saw like the stereophotogrammetric system, it's huge and it's not easily translatable into the clinical practice, but a phone, everyone has a phone and can do the scanning, and our preliminary results are quite promising. So I have been telling you about this approach that you have, that we try it to be holistic, inclusive, and interdisciplinary, but also it's very transdisciplinary. And I think this was also, this is a key for being able to achieve what we have achieved and to have success. Because in order to study rare diseases, it's super important that you work along with the family associations. So we have been working side by side with the associations, especially of Turner syndrome, but also with many others that we interact. We managed to do that, like working with social media. We have this project called Juntas Menos Raras. In Instagram, we very often share what we are doing in our research, what are our outputs, how we envision the research in rare disorders. And 1 or twice a year, we organize gatherings in which we bring together the patients, the family associations, researchers, clinicians, and policymakers in order to have this forum where we can discuss in common what are the needs and the future, how we envision future for rare diseases. So that's everything. And
thank you. Great project. And now let me introduce NaturPond, contribution of naturalized urban ponds to the environmental sustainability of cities. Daniel von Schiller, Calle, Department of Evolutionary Biology, Ecology, and Environmental Sciences, Faculty of Biology, UB. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present my work here, or our work here. I will present the work we've been doing in urban ponds in the city of Barcelona during the last 2 to 3 years, and some of the key results, and also I will try to be a bit more explicit about how we have used a transdisciplinary approach in the project. Here? Okay. So urban naturalization is becoming important. Many cities are increasingly adopting what we nowadays call a lot nature-based solutions to enhance mainly biodiversity, but also human well-being in cities. And the naturalization of artificial urban ponds, here I will use this acronym AUP, is one of these strategies. And this naturalization usually occurs by the cessation of chlorination of the water that is used in these ponds, and also the introduction of different natural elements, mainly vegetation, but also sometimes animals. Currently, the naturalization of artificial urban ponds basically prioritizes urban biodiversity, while other potential benefits remain quite unexplored so far. In the city of Barcelona, so it's a city actually that has strongly committed to naturalization strategies in different aspects of the city, and also in urban ponds. Here it's important to acknowledge that Barcelona has a Mediterranean climate. So we have water here in our city is a very valued resource and also very scarce resource. So this means that, for example, artificial water bodies are actually the most abundant freshwater system in the city. Okay? And this is not the same in other cities, like maybe some of the cities where you come from. Nowadays, we have over 80 available and naturalized artificial urban ponds in Barcelona. Here you see a little bit of a map of it, and we have them distributed all along the city, and especially in this area here, which is the Montjuic area, and here also in the part, what is called the Parc Labrin de Horta, but we also have these natural urban ponds also in other parts of the city, very urbanized ones. And I have shown you here on the right side also two pictures of ponds in Barcelona. On the lower part you see a typical naturalized pond. This is one from Montjuic area. And on the upper part you see a typical non-naturalized one. Like there is also a lot of them in the city, more than the naturalized ones. And here's where our project comes in. The project is called Naturbond, and we have basically two main goals. The first one is to evaluate how naturalized artificial urban ponds contribute to achieve key environmental goals in the city. And the second goal is to provide knowledge that really can support what we call the informed decision-making by both managers and practitioners. And in the lower part, you see a little bit a graph of the benefits that we want to study or that we have studied during this project. And these benefits are basically climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, also aspects of biodiversity, human well-being, this is where psychology comes in a lot, and also pollution prevention and control. To address such objectives from the beginning, we saw that we actually needed an interdisciplinary and even more probably a transdisciplinary approach. So we built at the beginning an interdisciplinary research team, and here we have ecologists like myself, but also geologists, hydrogeologists, and also environmental psychologists. Okay? And this is the team that basically wrote the first proposal for the project that was funded. We could not involve other stakeholders like managers or practitioners in the beginning of the call, but we involved them right from the beginning of the project because we wanted to involve them to have their perspective to the project, basically to align our research to their needs, okay? Because many times, at least this happens to me, many of my ideas are not always easily transferable to what really managers want. And from the beginning, we organized meetings like the one you see here in the picture, and also interviews with different managers and practitioners to really try to align, let's say, our ideas with their ideas and make our outcomes of the project more practical for them. And the managers we involved were basically different areas and independent bodies of the Barcelona City Council. Here it was important Becasa, which is Barcelona Cicle del Agua. These people are responsible for managing the water in the city. But we also collaborated a lot with the Museum of Natural Sciences. Here basically the Botanic Gardens, which also are using a lot of, or are doing a lot of naturalization of ponds, and also the Zoo Park of Barcelona. And practitioners, we try to involve several companies, environmental engineering companies, which actually are the ones that are implementing many of the restoration, naturalization projects in the city and beyond. And we have collaborated a lot with one company called Naturalea, which is a bioengineering company. So in the next slides, I will present to you some of the key results we have been able to obtain so far. I will start with some biodiversity results. This is the first things we studied. We wanted to see what is the contribution of naturalized urban ponds to the biodiversity in the city. And basically, we found that these systems are biodiversity hotspots. So we have seen that they can host over 150 species of algae, plants, insects, amphibians, reptiles, and birds, like the ones you see in the pictures. These are all pictures from organisms we found in naturalized urban ponds in Barcelona. We also have found that it is important to have a high structural complexity, especially in the aquatic vegetation, to increase this species diversity. Also, not surprising, we have found that there is a high prevalence of exotic and even some invasive species in these ponds, and this poses risks to the city, but also beyond the city for these type of species being able to expand. And we have identified that here the main management challenge for managers is basically selecting the species that can withstand the urban conditions, which can be very harsh for many of these species, but also providing at the same time aesthetic value, which is a very valued thing by people, you will see later, and also supporting local biodiversity. Okay, the second thing I will show you is we have investigated also this potential benefit of pollution prevention and control by these type of systems. Here it's important to know that these systems are basically fed, in the city of Barcelona at least, basically fed by groundwater. And this is good because this is an available water resource in a city like Barcelona, where I said we have a Mediterranean climate and water is scarce, okay? But the problem is that this water is often very polluted, okay? Polluted with heavy metals, but also with many organic contaminants, etc. And an interesting thing we have been seeing is that when we compare non-naturalized and naturalized ponds, like in the graphs you see on your right side, we see that these naturalized AUPs are able to immobilize a lot of contaminants, for example, heavy metals like zinc, copper, nickel, and much more effectively than what occurs in non-naturalized urban ponds, where we see much higher concentrations. And this is basically due for a lot for the vegetation that grows in these naturalized ponds. And this effect of immobilization is very fast, okay? So this naturalization could be a strategy, a nature-based solution for groundwater treatment that could allow also to use the water from the groundwater that stays in these ponds later for other uses, like, for example, for irrigation in the parks. Another benefit we have been studying is climate change mitigation, and we have been doing this by measuring the emissions or the fluxes of greenhouse gases in these ecosystems, and we have found some interesting things here also. We have seen that the naturalization can reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases, especially nitrous oxides, this N2O, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. And we can see this on the graph here on your right, where we see non-naturalized ponds and naturalized ponds, and where, in general, the concentrations, or in this case it's fluxes, not concentrations, but also the concentrations have a similar behavior, show much lower values in the naturalized ponds for CO2, for methane, for N2O, and also for the total flux, okay? And we have also seen, by measuring different parts of these ponds, that emerging aquatic plants can play a very crucial role in reducing these emissions. So here, a small conclusion is that naturalization can also act as an effective climate mitigation tool in urban environments. Regarding climate change adaptation, we've been also conducting some studies on this. Basically, we have been together, basically the ecologists and the psychologists, we've been going to 2 parks in Barcelona in summer, and we've been measuring heat with some equipments like the ones you're seeing here in the pictures, and at the same time performing some interviews on the people. So we wanted to measure heat stress, and at the same time measure the perception of the people on this heat stress, okay? And we have seen that there is a cooling effect of areas with naturalized urban ponds in the parks during this summer, although this temperature reduction is quite subtle. But at the same time, it can be perceived very positively by park visitors from many ages, different genders, etc. So here, what we see is that if we manage them well, these naturalized artificial urban ponds can also function as a climate adaptation tool, not only mitigation tool, but also a climate adaptation tool in urban areas, where we have a lot of pavement that amplifies heat stress. And this is an important thing now for the city of Barcelona, who is now also promoting a lot what they call climate refugia. And this type of systems in the park could also be a type of climate refugia. This is something we want to work more. And then finally, I also wanted to show you the benefits on human well-being that we also have been studying, more from a psychological perspective. Here we've also been performing a lot of interviews in different parks of the city with ponds, also visual observations with different tools, and we've been performing different types of analysis. For example, this type of networks analysis you see here on the graphs, where you see a network here on the upper part, of green spaces without ponds and on the lower part of blue spaces. And we see the different type of people that go there and the different behaviors. So with all these interviews, visual observations, here I give you a bit of a summary of what we have been finding so far. First thing is that the visitors of these ponds perceive their high aesthetic quality. This is something that comes in all the interviews and in many of them. And also that there is a greater psychological well-being in these naturalized urban ponds. Also, we have been seeing that these ponds can help reduce stress in the city, enhance relaxation, and restore the attention of many people that visit these type of systems. Right? At the same time, they can encourage like unique water-related behaviors, like the ones we see here a bit on the right side, like biodiversity observation, interaction with water, and photography, things that people don't usually do in other systems that don't have this type of systems. And finally, what we also have seen that the presence of ponds also leads to longer visitor stays, supports social interactions, nature connection, and also psychological restoration. All of them very important in a city where many of us live and are very stressed. So some takeaway messages at the end that I wanted to give you, a bit summarizing what we've seen. The first thing is that naturalizing urban ponds really provides multiple benefits for cities and for the residents in the cities. We have been able to demonstrate different effects, for example, higher diversity, biodiversity, attenuation of contaminants, lower greenhouse gas emissions, urban cooling, and also improved well-being and social cohesion. Also, these naturalized ponds, we have seen that they can support sustainable water management in a water-scarce region like here, like where we live, right? And also enhances urban livability. We think that these type of systems are a strong case for integrating naturalized aquatic systems into urban planning, and we think the city of Barcelona should continue naturalizing this type of ponds. Okay? Nonetheless, I think we need to do more research, even more transdisciplinary than until now. The good thing is, for example, that recently we have funded a new project called ClimaBlue, where we will incorporate more people into our interdisciplinary team, and we have also included some management and practitioners from the beginning that have also played a role in the writing of the call. Okay. So I would say stay tuned, because with ClimaBlue we will also analyze other benefits and maybe also non-benefits of naturalizing these type of systems. And with this, thanks for your attention, and also I would like to thank the funding of this, and here you also have my contact, or we can also chat afterwards if you have any questions. Thank you.
So thank you so much. What a diversity here. And every topic not related to your specialty seems to be much more exciting, isn't it? So now I'm introducing the last one for this session, which is Cambia al Rostre, co-created audiovisual campaign to combat HIV stigma among young on social media. Sergio Villanueva Baselga will be the presenter, and is from the Department of Library Science, Documentation and Audiovisual Communication, Faculty of Information and Audiovisual Media, UB. Thank you.
So thank you, Rosina, for the introduction, and thank you, Eurolife, for the invitation to this session. I will start explaining this is as you can see, if we compare the projects, this is a very small and very local and very concrete and specific project. It's called in Catalan Canvia el Rostre. You will see now why it's important that the name is in Catalan. In English, we can translate it as Change the Face, co-created a visual campaign to combat HIV stigma. The context of the project, this project was developed in 2024, so last year, it lasted a year. So the context was that if you are into, or you know more or less, which is the context of HIV nowadays in the Western world, is like HIV infections are decreasing thanks to the prevention tools that we have available, like the HIV PrEP. But the stigma is not decreasing among population. We have a campaign, so UNAIDS launched a campaign 10 years ago, that was called the 90-90-90 strategy. Now it's 95-95-95. That means 95 of the people who live with HIV know that they live with HIV, so they are diagnosed. Though from these, 95 are taking their medication, so they are on treatment. And from those, 95% have undetectable viral load. So if we reach this 90-90-95, that means 85 of the population living with HIV will be unable to transmit the virus. Some activists and some scholars have called for an extra fourth 95, that is the 95 of all of these living with good quality of life and without stigma. And for these fourth 95%, there are many strategies, and one of these strategies is to develop campaigns and education-based campaigns to reduce stigma in local populations, very concrete, very segmented and in transdisciplinary consortiums. So this is the context in which we applied for this grant. This grant was funded by the Catalan Foundation of Research and Innovation, and it was a grant for outreach, so for dissemination of science in Catalan language. So I won't be able to show you the campaign because it's in Catalan language, but you have to trust me. So the funding for this project, the main aim was to develop a campaign in Catalan language for young people to combat HIV stigma. But in the process, we deployed a transdisciplinary research process in order to better understand which are the bases of the HIV stigma that young people in Catalonia have, and how we can combat those stigma, asking the young people why they believe what they believe, and what do they need to surpass those false beliefs. So for that reason, we have, in this project, we did two phases. One first phase that was more or less 5 months, that was to co-design and deploy a survey on the knowledge and attitudes towards sexual health among 18 to 24 years old in Catalonia. For this, and we say that is co-designed because we included here one association that is called, in Catalan, Estejas, is called the Youth Center for Sexual Health Attention. That is a center, an association, and an NGO that provides support to young people on managing sexual health, like unwanted pregnancies, STI infections, and education-based strategies. And when we incorporated them, we had as a researchers, so we are two scientific disciplines, so people coming from health sciences and us that are media scholars, media and communication sciences. We had our scientific base and very well thought questionnaire. When we included them, they told us, you are focusing on HIV stigma, but now young people, they live with another problem, that is increasing STI infections that are affecting especially them. They are a very vulnerable group. Especially some infections are increasing a lot among young people, like chlamydia or gonorrhea or chlamydia, gonorrhea, or syphilis. For instance, young girls have the greatest number of chlamydia diagnoses in the last 4 years. And this is not accompanied by diagnosis in boys, because boys are not being checked while girls are being checked. So why this is happening? So Cejas told us, why don't you change your survey and include some questions to also ask about the knowledge they have on other STIs, on bacterial STIs and viral STIs, and the reasons why they are doing or not doing testing. So first thing we learned, we wrote the proposal in a very odd way because we didn't include the stakeholders we wanted to include in the research process, in the writing process, as Danis has done now. And the second phase, after a survey, we have this diagnosis and this picture of how this Catalan young population thinking and addressing sexual health. The second phase was this co-creation process of this audiovisual campaign that was facilitated by this NGO that is called Cejas. We included another NGO that is one of the most important NGOs for LGTB sexual health in Barcelona, that is called STOP, and we asked young people, so the young people themselves, they were involved in this process. We call our students in the audiovisual degree in our faculty and other young people from other faculties in order not to be asked. So, first phase, the survey, I'm showing very few results. These results are now under evaluation in different journals, but I can show you, I'm sorry it's in Spanish in this case, but what we learned is that regarding knowledge in HIV, they had quite good knowledge, so medium-high knowledge on HIV. For instance, HIV cannot be transmitted by sniffing, of course. They fully disagree that it can be transmitted by coughing. But for instance, in attitudes, what we found is that they had mid-low attitudes toward HIV, for instance, so they have mid-high stigma, for instance. I think, the last sentence, I think that hospitals should indicate and mark who has HIV to avoid it to be transmitted into healthcare professionals. More than 65% of young people in Catalonia think that this should happen. So that means the prejudice and the false myths against HIV, even though they have good knowledge, are still high. So why is this happening? So they are the first generation to live their sexuality and their sexual health in a world which the treatment keeps the HIV control, and there is no, in the Western world, in our Western countries, it's not applied to other parts of the world. Why is this happening? If we also, as suggestion by Cejas, we included other STIs, and what we found is that more than 40% of general sample, but around 55% of the boys didn't consider chlamydia or papilloma, chlamydia and papilloma to be only affecting women, so not affecting men. A false knowledge, a false myth. Why is this? Our question: why is this happening? Why boys don't have this perception that chlamydia and papilloma are also affecting them, and they are part of the transmission vectors to women. There is very little knowledge about other STIs like hepatitis, A, B, or C, or Mpox, even though Mpox, the epidemic of Mpox was 3 years ago. And we found a correlation between those who have high levels of HIV stigma with some variables like low knowledge of STIs, which might be logic, this association, political ideology, and number of LGTB acquaintances. So the higher the number of LGTB acquaintances, the lower the HIV stigma was. So with this diagnosis, we started our co-creation process, and this co-creation process took 7 months. You have to imagine that 7 months, out of this, we produced 5 episodes. Each episode, the shooting is 4 hours for 20 minutes episode, plus a week of post-production, plus a week of validation. That means in the last 2 months of the project, we were living in the studio. So what we did, we included this association. So this association, the Centre d'Atenció a les Sexualitats, they facilitated the co-creation workshops. We also included professionals from the other NGO, and we included, so those doing the co-creation workshops were young people, especially from our faculty, but also included other members, students from other faculties. In this, the premise of this co-creation workshop was, we have budget for 5 episodes. We have limited budget. We have to pay the technicians, the script writers, so we have budget for 5 episodes. Think of the main script for these 5 episodes, and take decisions like, which is the narrative of this episode, who should be the conductor, who are the protagonists, which are the colors you want to be presented, which are the elements do you would like this to be framed. So all narratives and all the elements of the production were for them to choose. So it was very interesting to see how they discuss, so the associations, the professionals in the associations and the young people discussed on things that for the association, the people even working in the association were very logic, like a very interesting thing, is like for them, red, the color red, is basic for HIV. They think of HIV and they think of red. For youngsters, they didn't want red in the production. They didn't like the palette of colors they chose for the aesthetics of the program. Didn't include red. They didn't want it red. For them, HIV is not red. HIV is another thing. So finding this is a main vocabulary, but also a common colorimetry and a common narrative and common characters was quite challenging and interesting. At the end of the process, they defined that these 5 episodes will be first an intro to STIs, the second to whom we speak, so who are the ones we are addressing our questions on sexual health. Third, how media is portraying stigma. Fourth, how porn is a tool for sexual education, and if it's or it's not. And the fifth, a final conclusion with a summary of these four ideas. This was more or less the aesthetics of the final production. It was we call it video podcast. So this video podcast was called "The Stigma No Es Sexy." The stigma is not sexy. The title was chosen by them. The logo was chosen by them. The elements in the logo were chosen by them and were produced by them. And they provided us the palettes of the colors. They provided us the list of the programs, the topics they wanted to speak, and then a reduced group of script writers. That we were 3 script writers. So we were 3. As you can see, it's me with 2 students. So they were also part of they were the ones chosen from the group to be part of the script writers and the conductors of the program. And in every program, we invited an expert to speak about each one of the programs, like a video podcast. So at the end of the day, when we evaluated, so we finished the 5 episodes, we gave the episodes back to the group of the students that had participated in the co-creation workshops, and they evaluated them, and with some positives and some negative aspects, that if we had opportunity to continue the video podcast with another project, we would have incorporated into it. If you can check it, it's online. We have Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube. They're on the 4 platforms, and you can find it under the Stigma No Es Sexy. And that's, yeah.
So we end here the description of the projects, and now we start the roundtable discussion that will be run by Sergio. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you everyone for being here still, and we will start now a roundtable about the challenges that we have when we face transdisciplinarity. I prepared a slide. I don't know if the technician can put the slide on the differences between interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, and so on. You know where we can have the slide? Because for introducing the table, I wanted first to make, we have here. Yeah, so some of these terms, as you can see in our presentations, we have used some of these terms, like interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, but sometimes we use it without knowing exactly which are the difference among these words. So before starting the roundtable, I wanted to clarify, or at least provide some examples on how these concepts are different. And I like a lot this slide that is very visual and explains the differences as if the different scientific disciplines were vegetables. Yeah? So when a process is intradisciplinarity, that means that we are speaking within our university, so the different actors working in the same discipline are the same vegetable in a whole dish. So it's a quite dull and not very tasteful dish. When we include people from other disciplines, so we include not only carrots, but we have broccoli, we have beans, we have onions, we have tomatoes, we have cross-discipline. That means we have different disciplines that are speaking among them, but they are not sharing methods, they are not sharing a common language, and they are not trying to find a common ground. So it's a vegetable dish, quite dull also, but at least we don't only have carrots, we have others. Yeah? And this is cross-disciplinarity. The next step would be the multidisciplinarity. Multidisciplinarity is when different disciplines work together, each one providing different perspectives. They try to mix some methods, but the disciplinary domain remains intact. So the health science scholar remains health scholar and remains defending their own methods and their own concepts. And this becomes a salad, something that is more fun, that perhaps we can find and is good to eat, is better than this very dull vegetable dish. The next step is the interdisciplinarity. And some of us, we've used this term already. So interdisciplinarity means that the different disciplines really mixed. So the different persons coming from the different disciplines really mix, really try to find a common ground, try to find a common vocabulary, a common glossary of the words they are using, and there is a common understanding of these words. There is a common ground of the methodology they are using, so they are mixing methods and finding good solutions for the mix of these methods. But there is still some remainings of the original disciplines. Yeah? And this is a stew, let's say. Yeah? And of course, better than a salad, depending for whom. And then we have the last step, that is the transdisciplinarity. And in the transdisciplinarity, the big surprise is that out from different vegetables, we get a cake. So in the transdisciplinarity are different disciplines working together, finding a common ground, finding a common glossary, understanding the common way, the methods, but including non-academic and non-people from for outside these disciplines. So companies, NGOs, public administration, civil society organizations that provide those ingredients that without us realizing make our work having different objectives. So making a cake out of the different vegetables. So when we speak of transdisciplinarity, perhaps this is something that we can discuss now. Transdisciplinarity always means an effort from us, scholars, to adapt to other disciplines, to open our eyes to other disciplines, but also to others that don't work on science, and they don't speak on our words. They don't think of papers. They don't think of scientific outputs. Their aims, their logics, their ideologies, their agendas are very different to us. And if we open our ears and our eyes to them, we can find a very different objective that will satisfy all of us. Who doesn't like a cake? So with this introduction, we can open the roundtable. And the first question that we had, I'm going to the second question, that is, as you've seen, the different projects that you have listened have had a problem with time. When we go to interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity projects, we have to deal with time. This is very we can stop sharing the slides. With that slide was enough. It's very time consuming. It's not the same working with our team on our topics, on our methods, and with our aims, that including others with different logics, different agendas, and different expectations. And that's timely cost. And our projects last 1, 2, 3 years, so that's very challenging. How do you manage this time challenge in your projects or in your transdisciplinarity experience? Who wants to start? Neus? Or
okay, I can start, yeah. First, I would like to thank the Global Sustainability Hub of University of Barcelona, for inviting me. I haven't been one of the speakers because I collaborate with Neus for like 10 years now. I'm also the only researcher who is not from Universitat de Barcelona, which makes our collaboration not only inter or transdisciplinarity, but also inter-institution, which is not always easy because your institution and my institution are very different. We are a small university, we are private, you are big, you are public, so this makes things also a little bit complex sometimes. About time, yeah. As I said, we've been collaborating with Neus for 10 years now, so I think we already managed to overcome those problems that we had at the beginning because we are very different. We are engineers, we are computer scientists, they are biologists, and we think in completely different ways. And we had differences not only in semantics, to understand each other, it was a challenge at the beginning, but also methodological challenges, which sometimes still arise now, because we think that in a very different way, we engineers, we want it everything now, we want it everything fast, we want the data now, and we want to solve the problem right now. And sometimes it's not the way to go. Sometimes you have to reflect, to understand the data that you are given, and it's the main challenge that we face. And it has taken us quite a long time to address these issues and to solve these problems. But once you overcome this phase, anything we can achieve is much more than we could achieve by ourselves. So it's a really, really rewarding way to proceed.
Yes.
To add on that, I would say that I totally agree that it takes a lot of time to talk with so much diverse people, because we collaborate with them engineers, but with Juntas Menos Raras, we also invest a lot of time, I would say, like working together with the family associations, and when we do like outreach programs as well, like now we are with a friend of mine, we are doing also like a video, and it was amazing how I spent 2 hours explaining her what was our research about, and she's been able to summarize that in 2 minutes, and it's perfect, like so simple, like it was like, wow, it was incredible how she managed. And I would say a key of that is finding good partners, like partners that everyone is involved, that everyone is committed, that like everyone makes the effort to understand the other, like because sometimes you try with people and there is no personal match as well, and then it makes it much more difficult, this transdisciplinary
Very
research.
good lesson. Like, try to work before with the partners, before starting like a big project, because time management will be one of the challenges. Angela?
Yes, in that way. It's more or less, as I said, for example, that we were working with the city municipalities and an entity of cooperative entity. So we take our network, working, our previous network, trying to localize who is working in that municipality, maybe that people could connect with other. And it takes, it's more easy to start with people that you already more or less know how they work, what are their interests, what are their needs. So starting from that point of view is easier than starting, like a cold door, that say in social science, that trying to find someone that you don't know is very difficult. So starting with your social network could help to manage time, yeah.
And Daniel, that you made something very smart, that is including them in the writing of the proposal.
This was in the new, so thanks. This is in the new project, so I don't know, in the previous project we did not, so, and this also depends on the calls, right? Because some calls allow you to, others don't, especially, maybe this is something we discuss later, but I think the nice calls are the ones where let's say these other disciplines even managers, practitioners can also get money, right? And this is not so common in Spain, for example, right? So, yeah, but going back to what you say, I don't know, there's probably a lot of trial and error, no, I guess. So you were saying maybe with some people you work well and with others you don't, no? So I don't know. In my project, this was probably the most interdisciplinary one I have had. I was also PI. One of my first projects is PI, I must say that also. So, and I think I found out that with some people it worked better than with others in the team. With some people it was great, and some of these people will continue working with me, and others maybe not. And probably you need time, no? to get this language right together. So I think we still need more time. So probably to get and work better together. Yeah, so it needs time.
So the next question would be, as you said, Daniel, that you need, so time is a challenge, but you need this time to find this common ground of concepts and methods and perspectives. So how did you do in your project to find that common ground? Xavier, you were explaining about the methodology. It was difficult for you to mismatch, to match and avoid this mismatch in methods. How did you do it? You employed some techniques, some strategies. How was that process of matching methodologies and concepts?
I think it's a matter of patience. I think it's a matter of patience and curiosity. I think it's both ingredients are necessary to think out of your box and get interested in the methods that, in this case, Neus and her team use, which were completely unknown for us, and now we understand those methods, we value those methods, we understand how we can integrate those methods in our pipelines for developing these algorithms and these methods that we are programming and these automatic solutions that allow us to help and to solve these problems that we are addressing. So I think it's patience and curiosity and interest for learning something new and going beyond what you know, because otherwise, if you stay in your field of knowledge and you refuse learning something other, then it makes no sense. It will be like a plate of vegetables, and that's it.
Yeah, I would say that keeping your mind open to new ideas and new ways of working, it's very necessary in this kind of research. And logistically, it was more at the beginning that we were organizing a lot of common meetings, right? Like we were selecting papers and we had like one every month, let's say. We have a meeting and 1 month it's like more a bio paper. The next month is more an engineering paper. So step by step, all the teams were first knowing each other and establishing personal connections between them after we go for a lunch or we go for a beer, like so that everyone was mingling. But then after, like to have, like to learn more about the others and to value the work of the others and always be open. Like every month we are expanding our group. Like this last data collection, we have incorporated physiotherapists and paleoanthropologists even, like because you start talking with people and say, hi, but so maybe we could, yeah, come along and let's try it. So it's always being open and everyone, and I think the team is also very open as well.
Angela, in your case, that you included also citizens of these municipalities?
Yes. We include the citizens in the focus group, and it was, we try to understand to each other because they have different experiences, and also we have some students that come with us to the different focus group, and I think that the best or one of an additional is trying to, do that like escucha activa, active
listening.
Active listening, yes. Just, when someone says something, you say, okay, let me see if I understand quite well what you say. So trying to reflect what people have said, and if not, trying to, to find the main significance of that idea.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, in your case? Because you also included citizens in your,
not really,
in your
not
response?
in this project, not really. No, yeah, it would be nice also. I don't know, I was going to say the same things, like be open, listen, talk a lot. I think probably we should talk more in my project. At the end, we don't have so much time, and I think probably we should take more time. Maybe also doing more gatherings, like you were saying, and I think this helps a lot, no? Because I've had also some good experience with that, yeah.
Yeah, for example, our experience with the patients, it has been that for us to organize data collections, they usually invite us to their annual meetings. So usually they meet in Burgos, because there's the CREER, del Centro de Referencia de Enfermedades Raras en España. So it's something from the government that they let them use for a weekend, that those installations for them to meet, they have their gatherings, etc., and to know each other. So they invite us to come along. So they really value that we spend our weekend with them, the whole weekend. So while we are doing our research, we spend to know them, we have lunch together with them, we talk about and they really feel that we worry about them and that we want to work for them and to improve their lives. So then it suddenly changes all the atmosphere, and they want to participate, they come all the family along. Then one of our tools, in fact, was funded by donations of one of these family associations, because they were like, how we can help. So it's really like they get involved, they want to know more, or they say, oh, I am an engineer as well, how can I help? So like spending time with the people is really fostering this collaboration, transdisciplinary collaboration with the patients and the family associations.
Actually, this is an example also of active listening, no? Going to their spaces and just listening to them, no? Without telling them what to do. So, do you think after visiting these different projects and visiting this new way of working, do you think that transdisciplinarity will change research, or is changing the research we are doing, the processes, the evaluation of the research, and how is changing it, this transdisciplinarity paradigm? Big question. Neus, you have an answer?
I think it's really improving, but because what Xavi was saying before, by working together, we get to do much more work than we could do, like spending the same amount of time, but separately. So by combining, like for example, for us, we are gaining a lot of time by all this automatized process that before we were collecting landmarks manually, spending months and months, and then another student was coming, and then we couldn't combine the data set because it was another person and we had a landmark in error. So now it's just pressing a button and everything is done. So we can really do more things. But then also sometimes it has some difficulties, because I think the field is not, in sometimes when we present very interdisciplinary work and you try to find a journal, where do we publish this? It doesn't fit to any journal, because it's not it's not through engineering, it's not through biology, it's a combination. So there are not so many papers or calls in programs in which field do I apply, in which category. You don't fit anywhere really, and that's a point.
Yeah, in some sense, when you are collaborating with another discipline, and for us, for engineers, it's super nice to have a real-world scenario where we can apply our tools, but you also find, like Neus was mentioning, that some more purist engineering researchers, they somehow disregard what you do because it's like applied engineering. But otherwise, if it's not applied, what's the sense of doing this? I mean, I can develop very advanced algorithms that are absolutely useless. But if we have a field of application And this transdisciplinarity allows us to have a real-world application and a very useful application. It's for us a change in the way that we envision research, the way we transmit research to our students, for instance, in university. It's much more compelling for them. It's much more easy for me to explain what I do as a researcher to my students if I explain, well, we are working on a project, trying to diagnose rare diseases and so on, that if I was doing something more abstract and with no very clear application. So for us, this is a very big change.
Angela?
Yes, in my case, I think that this kind of transdisciplinary approach brings us the opportunity to analyze, the complex reality, because we have different point of view, different way of understand the reality. So in that way, it could cover a bigger picture of the reality. And on the other side, also, it seems that, for me, that you can find what are the needs of people, because I am a social psychology, so I am very interested about what are the needs that, that science needs to cover. So I think that working with transdisciplinarity, we can identify those needs and trying to work for that, so in the same sense as applied research.
Daniel, what do you think about this new paradigm, and where is research and science going with it?
I think it is changing. So my answer is yes. I think it is becoming, so if you are transdisciplinary, your research will be much more applied. So I think it goes together, right? Because if you have your end users with you, your product will be practical for the end users. So in that sense, I agree with Angela that I think you do more holistic research, but also I think especially you do really applied research if you do it well, right? Because we are not always successful. Also, I think we need to acknowledge. Sometimes I think our products maybe are not the ones that people really want or end users really want. But if we are successful, then our work will do like the whole way, right? From research to end users.
So perhaps it's changing in the way that transdisciplinarity is also teaching us that not all our results are positive. And not all our results are positive. We also have negative results, but that there are also valid results.
Sure.
No? Yeah. And Neus pointed out something that is very relevant, that is the grants and scholarships you applied, that if they are very disciplinary focused, when you apply a transdisciplinarity project, it's difficult to fit it. And it will add also on publication. So if you publish, I'm evaluated as a social scientist within the media studies or communication sciences, but I have many publications in health journals and in infection diseases. And sometimes that makes the evaluation, the research assessment very difficult. So my last question will be, which institutional mechanisms do we need to foster this change, both in the research assessment, but also in the research funding? So which institutional changes do we need? Any idea? Xavi?
One thing that the other day we were talking with Neus is that, we are in two different universities, but we mostly work like if we were a single research group, more or less. In fact, I'm co-supervising thesis in her lab, and she's co-supervising thesis in my lab. But the fact that you co-supervise a thesis when it comes to accreditation processes and so on, it counts as a half a thesis, not one thesis, which is ridiculous. I mean, Neus is co-supervising thesis in my lab because it's necessary, because we are doing research in the frontier of two fields of knowledge, two very different fields of knowledge, and the other way around. So it doesn't make sense that when we go to ACU and these kind of agencies that give us accreditations, one co-supervised thesis, interdisciplinary thesis, is half a thesis, not one thesis. So maybe this should be changed, and interdisciplinary research, when it's truly interdisciplinarity, it should be regarded as a value, not as something that adds, not that subtracts to the...
Yeah, I think some things are changing in the evaluation. Like, for example, the last PhD grant that we got, it was like, it also counted, it also, it's not? See, sorry, sorry. So it counted, it was given to our students half a point more because we were, there were interdisciplinary course supervision. So that is nice. So at the project level, in the same way that now in the different calls, you have to write an assessment of how do you deal with gender, for example. So it could be nice to explain how you include the transdisciplinarity in your research. And then, for example, on the other side, when we apply for these Els grups consolidats, no, it's penalized that you are working with people from other universities. So in that sense, that is not helping, because that means that you only can find partners within your university. It's good to promote internal collaboration, but you cannot really penalize like that there are externals, because like maybe the people you need is outside, or the people that you get along with are outside. So there are things to be done there.
I am thinking right before starting this meeting, we were talking, oh, well, how are you today? What are your next challenge? And everyone was talking about, economic operative of the research projects is very difficult for us. We are teachers, professors, researchers, administrators, and all of this stuff. I think that the process should be more easy to simplify all of the procedures, how to involve people in the research, how to pay people who collaborate with you. And I think that maybe because we live in a very bureaucratic country and everything have to pass through different stages and with different papers and so on, it's very difficult trying to finalize a project in a good way. So that transdisciplinary add an additional layer, yes, in that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think your question was how do you think, how institutions could foster, right, interdisciplinary? I think in many ways. So I think things like the hub that Rosina was presenting are good ways, because I think one important thing is to know what other people, at least in your department, because sometimes I don't know what the guy in the 5th floor does when I'm in the 6th floor. So first of all, like, communication is important. And I was wondering, I think some institutions have even done some interdisciplinary departments. So maybe that's another way to go, which is probably very complicated in a university like our university, which tends to be like very fixed in this, and faculties and departments and all this. But probably this way. And I was wondering maybe we could also have people in the institutions who link, like who know a lot and who could link people, like maybe within hubs or something like that, and who could say, hey, we could link these people because I know what everybody does. And we could link this and apply it for these calls and so on. And I'm aware that some institutions do this also, and I think this could be another way. And of course, I also previously talked about calls, I think, but there is more and more calls that call for interdisciplinary research, I think, and not even transdisciplinary research. So I think that's also a way to go. I don't know.
Thank you. So after finishing, we would like to open some questions for the audience. So if there is anyone who would like to ask anything about the individual projects or the discussion we had, or want to add some comment on anything, any volunteer, any question? Yeah, two.
Thank you. Very interesting discussion, I must say, and very interesting projects. Just based on what you're saying at the end, I see a large part of the problem being people being prepared to put the time in, because if you are dealing with, as many of you are, very different disciplines, it takes so long to learn the other language. And do you think, therefore, that a way to encourage that might be that, that projects could automatically be funded for an extra period of time if they are successful? That's one point. The other point, I wonder, do you have any kind of feel for how many projects fail because it just is actually too complicated and you don't have enough time to establish a proper communication?
Anyone would like? So, for instance, regarding the time frame, in my case, in this project, it was like a year, super intense. I will never repeat this again, so never again. So, for instance, now in the Spanish research scheme, usually are for projects who are 3 years, that are 3 years long. And now that they would like to promote transdisciplinarity, they allow for a 4th year. So in the project that I'm coordinating now, we applied for a 4th year because it's transdisciplinarity. And really the first year was only getting into common with the different NGOs who were working, the different researchers working on it, and we really need this 4th year. But the budget is the same for the 3 than for the 4. So it's also we need to balance on this. What do you think? An extra year will help?
Yeah. Always. More time, more money always helps. And I don't have a grasp about failing.
How to value failing, you mean? How to value failing?
Yes, that he was asking if we know, have an idea of how many of these transdisciplinary projects fail, because
but fail on getting funding or fail in
that
the deployment? I guess.
I don't know.
If I can say, I think my feeling is they never are successful 100%, at least in my case. So I think my ideas at the beginning do not fulfill completely. But if I arrive to 70%, usually I'm happy. I don't know, that's a bit like it usually went for me, but my experience is also limited. But yeah, I think at the beginning you usually start by, we will produce this and that, and this will be super useful. And usually we do not, in some things we are successful to the end, but in many others not. And I think it's part of the job.
And if I can add, how to make this transdisciplinarity approach being more present in the universities. It's not only about the calls, it's that how the culture in the university is, so like for instance the hub, but also making this discussion going into lower layers like students. So usually we face transdisciplinarity when we are already established researchers, or maybe in the PhD we start thinking about it. Why don't we include this in master's programs? So master's students already facing with other master's students from other disciplines and trying to solve a challenge that requires different disciplines. So trying to embed this culture into all the parts of the educational parts of the university. Why not? No?
You know, on a related theme of that, I mean, a lot of initiative in research is translational research, is to translate it into practice. You know, if it's medical research, to have it.
Can you repeat and put the?
You know, and to add another term would be translational research, where you take your research and translate it into practice. And it could be a drug into practice, it could be ecology into practice. And I would think there's a much higher success rate when you have a transdisciplinary team leading it forward, is that you need that expertise to move it to the next stage along the continuum of translating it into whether it's practice or whether it's commercialization or whether it's a new guideline to introduce. So I would think the teams, you know, or team science using this approach has a higher success rate. So I think this is the way science needs to go to move forward. To really congratulate this approach, and I agree, it has to be right across the line.
I don't know if I got well, because we were not listening very well, the question. You got it? Like?
I think I got it a bit. I don't know.
The sound is quite bad.
What you made me think is that, and I had a thought about it, is probably you also need people in your team that are good in translating also the science you do, right? And
well, you need the team to cover all aspects to move it forward into, to move it forward into practice. I mean, you can think of how many projects end at a publication, which is good for your career, but how do you then implement it into society?
Sure. So no, what you make me think is that we also need to incorporate it as part of the team. Maybe.
Well, I would say the opposite. It's that these types of team have a higher success rate.
Okay, so people who have this insight, let's say, these teams that do not only think about the publication, but also go beyond that, right?
Actually, that's one, in our team, that's something that we try to foster a lot. That I told you about this Instagram account that we, the PIs, produce and show what we are doing, but we also encourage the students that when they go to a meeting, when they finish their final degree, like they do a short video themselves recording what they have been doing, what were the results, or also sometimes they, and they are super good doing this, and TikTok and these things that they record while they are collecting data, etc. And this is a way for them to understand that it's important that what they are doing, it has to have a return on society, but also helps all the people to understand the rhythm of science. Because when we go and collect data, like the next week, they already are asking us, do you have results? It's like, oh, no, we don't have results. This is taking like long to process all the data. So for example, if we all make the effort to explain how long it takes to enter all the data, to do the analytical analysis, to present, etc. It's like it's a win-win for everyone, I think, and also the society understands that we are doing a lot of effort, we are investing a lot of hours doing all this work that finally produces a result, if it can be published or not, but.
And perhaps this figure you were commenting, that this translator, could be something that not research group hires, but is provided by the university services, like they are provided grant writers, so they provide societal engagement and so on. Or research centers, they have a department for that. Why not including these kind of figures that are connecting science with other stakeholders constantly, no, for instance? I think we have time for an extra question.
Yeah, three short comments. First, Sergio, thanks for showing the picture of the vegetables. It's the first time I've understood. So that's really, really good. The second point is, how do you get the balance between natural development of these multidisciplinary projects contra chasing the money? If you have calls, then you force people to think, well, we should do this together, as opposed to having a natural interaction, like Xavier and News seem to have. So if you want to force it down into the curriculum, you mentioned masters, does it become then artificial? Is that really the way universities should be doing it? And the last point I wanted to make is, isn't the key to the success showing the impact of what you do?
Can you repeat the last question? Okay, the comment. Okay. Any comment?
Yeah, I totally agree on that sometimes when you are looking for funding and you try to put all together all these people, sometimes, and we tell it, like this week we were commenting this, that we just submitted a grant proposal in which we were participating, and you have a feeling that this is a bit Frankenstein, right? That everyone puts together its piece, but if you really don't devote time enough to think about what every piece means and how you put them together, that the whole makes sense, sometimes you have this feeling that it's a bit Frankenstein, and it's cool maybe to say that you are doing very fancy stuff in very different fields, but at the end of the day, it has to make sense.
Yeah, in this sense, I would add that it's important to have control of the project and, I mean, make it grow slowly. If you are collaborating with different partners, okay, just consolidate that collaboration, and before you add a new vegetable to a plate, okay, it's now, this is good enough, okay, let's add another one, because if you start putting more ingredients into the mix, it happens that you finally obtain a kind of Frankenstein proposal which makes no sense and will not get funded anyway.
I would like to give a comment about the transdisciplinarity into programs. We have one program which is called Health, Aging and Society. It's a master program, and there the elderly board is one part of the program. So our students have to discuss problems and hear the elderly what problems they have. So when they are in their professional environment, they learn not to take decisions over elderly, but with elderly. And a large part of the program is also called co-creation. So they have a lot of assignments in which they co-create with the elderly solutions for the future. So I think that would be one example on how you can get transdisciplinarity into a program.
Any last comment? No? So I think it's time that we have to close, right? It's time. Yeah, we are a bit late. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, colleagues, for your presentations and your super interesting projects. Thank you, everyone, or the audience, for your questions. And thanks the Hub and Eurolife for the invitation.